Hello and welcome back to the garden. From a very dry, very warm UK, but thankfully here in the north the heat waves are now over and the weather's cooler and it makes for ideal conditions to garden. And in this video I'm hoping to progress the planting in this new area. For anyone that hasn't watched the videos before, this is the lower Quarry and this is a bog garden. And I'll bring you in and I'll show you how wet the ground is. But it's divided in the middle by this central path. This area I've worked on over the last couple of years and it's pretty much done now. This side is something I started working on earlier this year. So let me turn the camera around, I'll bring you in and I'll show you what I've done to date. On this side of the central path, I do already have a water feature. It's a very small pond that I dug out about 18 months ago now. It's clay lined. I basically just tampered down the ground, mainly because it's predominantly clay, and it has made a waterproof seal, which has worked out quite well. And I wanted to add something on this side to make a feature. And I don't have a budget, don't have any money for any of these projects, so I have to make use of what I've already got. So for a path in, I've used some old pavers from an old patio. Stone, obviously, is what stone I dig up when I'm adding plants. The water bowl was an old fire bowl, and eventually it will be filled with water. It's got some rainwater in there for now. The hostas on the exterior are all hostas that I already had. I dug them up, I think it was 2 years ago now, and split them, and I've had them hanging around waiting for the right place for them to be planted. The cobbles, yes, I did buy those. 2 bags for £16, so I spent £32 on 4 bags of cobbles. At the back I have what I'm calling a sculpture. Quite a grand name for it. All it is offcuts from a laurel shrub. But hopefully it'll look good once I've planted around it. Although Mr. Quarry Gardener is not convinced. Then around the outside are all of the tarpaulins that I use to keep the ground covered, because weeds are my biggest enemy here in the Quarry garden. And let me show you how wet the ground is. All of these plants I've added in the spring over the last couple of months. These are ligularias, the rocket. Hopefully next year they will be the height of the ones on the other side. I have ferns in here. The royal fern, can't quite remember the name of that, but I'll put it on the screen. That particular fern loves wet ground, so it's ideal for this position. And then all of the primulas are Primula ferindi, which is the Himalayan primula, and all of these are self-seeded. I didn't actually have to plant any of them. They've all just self-seeded from the other side. Obviously wet ground is the position that they like, but here is where I stood earlier and you can see the puddles. So you stand anywhere in this ground and you sink. I've 2 plants that I want to add today in this side of the new bog garden. The first one is an Asplenium, the hart's tongue fern. Now the hart's tongue fern, the Asplenium, is native here in the UK. I think it's native to a few places in Europe too. And it does remain evergreen for me during the winter. It has lovely, very deep green glossy leaves. Although the rabbits do like to nibble on it during bad winters, but it doesn't seem to bother it and it just flushes out and regrows back in the spring again. It grows anything up to about 18 inches in height and in spread, so it's not a huge fern, but because it is evergreen, it's the reason why I want to use it around the sculpture area. The second plant is this one that I've used in a few places around the pond already, and on this side of the bog garden too, and this is a Rheum palmatum. The Rheum palmatum is also commonly known as an ornamental rhubarb, and I've come to love this particular perennial. since I added it about 18 months ago around the pond area. Dies back to the ground every year and regrows in the spring. It can grow to the dizzying heights of 300 centimetres apparently, although mine haven't reached those kind of heights. This one's starting to look a little bit chewed by all of the slugs and snails. I would say for me it's grown to about 3 feet in height. It does have a lovely red, crimson red flower in the summer, but again I haven't witnessed that. Could be that this area in the bog garden doesn't get enough sun for these particular plants to flower, but it does produce a flower apparently in the summer months. So this and also the Asplenium, the hartstongue fern, neither of them like boggy conditions. They don't like to sit with their roots in wet ground all winter. So how do I get around that? Very easily. I mound the ground or mound the soil. I create berms, and that's what I did for adding both of these and also the one on this side. I just added a lot of soil. It was soil that came out of the white garden. It was old turf strips that were broken down into soil, and I just created a bit like a raised bed as much as anything in these areas around the pond. And I had to do that to add a lot of perennials, but it seems to have worked. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll work on this side too. So while I plant these, why don't I put on the screen a tour of all of the areas in the Quarry garden that I've developed to date, and then you can come back and see these when I've planted them. Okay, I have planted one of the Rheums that I bought. The other one on the other side. I haven't prepared the ground yet, but that will go in probably in the next week. The path, yes, it's yet to be finished. And I didn't lay this path or dig out the hole for the water bowl. Mr. Quarry gardener dug out this area for me. Then we had to add a sub base, tamper it down, then the sand. So it was a bit of a process, but not to worry, we're there now. And then at the back, I've added the ferns, and hopefully you can see how I've mounded the ground up and around the sculpture. And in the winter, they should look really good when everything else is died back. Just wanted to add, when I fill up this water bowl, I do intend to add a solar powered oxygenator, and let me show you the one that I've got running in the pond just on the other side. Not quite sure whether it'll come up on camera, but hopefully you can see the bubbles, and they are from the oxygenator. Pond's very low. Normally the water is over all of these stones, but evaporation has been quite high this year with all the heat, and we've had no rain to fill up the pond. But this is the solar panel, very tiny solar panel that operates the oxygenator. I have one more job that I'd like to get done today. So let's take a walk down to the stumpry, where I have several perennials to add. Don't think I've showed this area yet. This is the hydrangea garden behind these hydrangeas. And they're just coming into bloom. These are limelight hydrangeas. Lots of flowering in the next week or so. On this side, everything's pretty much in full bloom. The ligularias are now just about finished. Persicarias, they're all in full flower. Daylilies dotted through here too. They're doing all right. Transplanted them this year in the spring. And then again, more Persicaria, ligularias. The rocket at the back there finished. But the Ligularia Desdemona is just starting to flower. The hostas, these are Hosta Francis. These have coped well in the dry weather. Lovely flowering on these. Very pretty. They've grown huge this year. That's because we had a very wet spring. That is a nettle at the back. That's a weed. Need to pull that out. The hostas on the opposite side, they have struggled because they're in more sun. All the ones underneath the bamboos are really dry. Half the size what they would normally be. These ones on this section, not too bad. The flowering has come and gone pretty quick because it is so dry. It's one of the few occasions, in fact it's probably the only occasion since I've started YouTube where I've said the weather has been so dry all summer. Standing at the top of the stumpry, the hostas that I added last year, wow, dreadful. They do not do well in this very dry area. The stumpry compared to the bog garden is so dry because it has several mature trees and they suck all of the moisture out of the ground. The ferns, however, because they're now established, they've been in 2 years, they're predominantly dryopterous ferns. They seem to cope well in the dry weather, and that's mainly because they're established, they've been in 2 years, so they're coping okay. I have trialled 2 Heucherellas, one here and one just behind the section of tree stump there, and they are doing well too in this dry weather, as are the Asplenium ferns, which I added last year. More than likely around about this time last year I think I added all of these, and because they're established and we had a very wet winter, wet spring, they have also coped well in the dry weather. What hasn't coped very well are the pulmonarias at the front. They've got a bad case of mildew, and I think I will just cut them back to the ground now. However, the pulmonarias at the back, which are shrimps on the barbie. I just love that name and I always remember this variety. They have done perfectly in the dry weather. The plant that I'm going to add to this area, and I've got several of them, is this Heucherella. And isn't that so pretty? Now normally it would be flowering in the spring because I already grow these elsewhere in the garden. And this is Heucherella Pink Revolution. And for all those that are unfamiliar with the Heucherella plant, it is a cross between a heuchera and a Heucherella, and it's suitable for woodland planting. Grows to about 40 to 50 centimetres in height, lovely, and that would be the height of the flowers, lovely pink flowers, spread about 30 to 35 centimetres. So it's not a huge perennial, but I'm going to plant it en masse, and I think it'll stand out really well in this stumpery. And this is one that I grew last year, and you can see very glossy leaves. It's really pretty leaf colour, and it's coped well. So because it's past its trial here, I'm going to add all of those down there. Now I'm going to create a drift of about 5 plants in this spot. And I have added some compost to the planting hole because the ground here is not good at all. It's very dry, impoverished soil. It doesn't look good at all. I have, last night before I did this, watered all of this area. Has it helped? I don't think so. But what I'll do is, I've watered all the plants well before I'm going to plant them, and I've got the hose brought down here, and I'll give them all a good water once they're actually in the ground. I'll put you on a bit of a time lapse while I add these. But it shouldn't take long. Now we do have rain forecast for most days next week, so hopefully this should be the only time that I do have to hand water these perennials. But that's it for today. Just like to say thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye for now.